All right, here we are. It is November 3rd, 2004. We are in Land O'Lakes, Florida, at the Baldemero Lopez State Veterans Nursing Home. It is my honor to talk with Dal Albert Ballenger, spelled B-A-L-L-E-N-G-E-R. Mr. Ballenger, would you tell us your date of birth and your place of birth?
I was born in Section Foreman's house in Mason, Kentucky on the 6th of May, 1927.
You also spent some time in the U.S. Army.
A little bit. Slightly over 22 years.
You were drafted, though, weren't you?
Yes, I was. In 1945, in August, they gave me just a short period of time after my 18th birthday, and then I got a letter from the friends and countrymen have selected you. Well, it was quite a selection. And on the 3rd of August, 1945, I went to Louisville, Kentucky, and was inducted into the service. I went, the first camp I was in was Camp Atterbury, Indiana. And you don't have that on your book. I was only there for a few days. And they gave us our uniforms, and if we had money enough, we sent our clothes home. If we didn't have money enough, we donated them to the Salvation Army. It was that simple. Then I went to Camp Fannin, Texas for basic training. 17 weeks of basic training. Finished basic training just before Christmas. So Christmas 1945, I was able to get back home to Kentucky and spend a couple of days with my family there, and long enough to wreck my father's car.
Now wait a second. Just as you completed your service, there's no more war. I mean, your training.
Yeah, that's it. Japan quit about just after I was drafted.
The connection there?
Well, I don't know. Germany quit the day I registered for the draft, and Japan quit 2 weeks after I was drafted, so maybe they thought I was coming. I don't know. They'd had some of the Ballengers in already, and I guess maybe they figured that's enough.
And what were you doing at the time you were drafted?
I was working on the farm and working on the railroad. My father had a stroke when I was 16, a heat stroke on the railroad. And so I got permission to go to work on the railroad when I was 16 years old. I went to school 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then I worked on the railroad Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And that kept the money coming in. My father had bought a farm when I was about 7, 8 years old. He decided that I had 3 brothers and 1 sister, and he decided that a farm would be a good place for 4 boys to grow up. And since I was the second oldest, a lot of the work fell to me. My older brother decided that he didn't care for farming, so when he was 17, he joined the 3 C's. And from the three C's...
No, explain what that is. That's the Civilian...
Civilian Conservation Corps. That's something that was set up by President Roosevelt to give unemployed people something to do. That and WPA, which we refer to as We Piddle Around. And
also known as the Works
Work Progress Administration.
That's right. That's right.
And, but I think that we piddle around is more important. However, Bay Pines Hospital down here in St. Petersburg was built by the WPA.
Oh, yeah, you do a lot of stuff.
And it's still standing today and still in use. It's been modernized quite a bit. But yes, my father wasn't too much for mechanization, so he had one mare and one mule, and that was what I used for a compass. And the hills of Kentucky, we grew, we had about 20 acres of alfalfa hay and 3 2/10 acres of tobacco base. The filthiest job in the world.
Yeah, see, that's a lot of hard work for that much land without mechanization.
It was hard work. It was hard work.
So you had been doing that for 10 years or roughly. Then the railroad too.
Right. Well, it had to be done. My younger brother, he helped me a lot on the farm. The youngest brother, he didn't get into the farm too much while I was there. He was only 13 when I went in the Army. And Dad tried to mechanize. He had a number of dairy cows and sold milk to the dairy. And he had to get milking machines and everything else. All 4 of us boys ended up in service at some time or other. My oldest brother went in from the 3 C's, as I mentioned, and he put in about, Bill put in about 11, 12 years. He went to Korea, was injured in Korea, and spent about 4 months on a hospital ship. His wife was in Japan. He was shipped to Korea from Japan. He was first sergeant. And he was shipped to Korea from Japan, and his family stayed in Japan. And he'd been on a hospital ship for more than 3 months before his wife found out he was even injured. And she was right there in Japan. And then my younger brother, Carl, for some reason or other, he always looked up to me, and I guess Carl and I were closer than any of the others at that time. And if I was in the Army when he turned 18, he was going to be in the Army too. He enlisted in the Army when he was 18, and was just about ready for discharge. And Truman gave him that extra year that they gave all of the regular Army personnel in Korea, to Korean time. And so Carl got angry with that. He went to Korea, had a good job there, working with the Air Force. And but he said he enlisted for 3 years, not 4. And so when he got out, and then when I got to Fort Knox, Kentucky, he came to visit me. And he said, you know, I miss the Army. And at that time, he already had 4 children. And it was difficult for him to get back in. But they let him back in. And he made it to Korea, or to Vietnam. And actually, this is going to bug me, I know, but the last official duty that I pulled in the Army was to escort his body for burial And when I got back, I walked in the orderly room and told the first sergeant I'm going home. I had about 2 weeks to go for retirement. I said, I'm going home. If there's an emergency, you can call me. And my younger brother, Nick, he went in the Navy. He said the Army had enough of the family. He went in the Navy. He got injured in Korea. He was on a battleship, and he just passed away about a year or so ago up in South Carolina. I didn't know where he was for years. And when my oldest brother passed away, my sister called me and she said, Dal, there's only 3 of us now. She said, we have an aunt, which I didn't know about. And her and me, because she said, we don't know whether Nick's alive or dead. And we found out later on he was alive, but then he had a heart attack and passed away. I had a chance to go and visit him one time up in South Carolina before he passed away. And then about 4 years ago, my sister passed away, so I'm the last of the Mohicans in that clan.
Carl was killed in action in Vietnam?
Yes. Yes, his name's on the wall.
Let's talk about your early days. We're talking now in early 1946. You've gotten out of the boot camp.
Yep.
And they sent you, they put you in an MP battalion?
Yes, military police battalion.
Is that what you wanted to do?
Yes, see, when the war was over, when Japan quit, all of the draftees were given an opportunity to go regular Army. And going regular Army, they could choose their branch of service and overseas destination. Number one, I hadn't lost a thing in the infantry. And I had heard that the MPs was a pretty soft job. I found out different later, but that was, and you could also choose your overseas area. Well, I also had lost nothing in the Far East. So I said, well, I'll go to Germany and I'll put in my 3 years, and at least I will have seen part of the world. And I got to Germany. It took us 10 days to make it across the pond. We had went over on a Liberty ship, they called it, a little bitty can, a couple of holes punched in it, and broke down out in the middle of the North Atlantic in January. So it was a real nice, comfortable ride. We landed in La Havre, France, took a 48 freight train. We were loaded into cattle cars on the freight train. Actually, they're not cattle cars, box cars. And troop trains were, in Germany at that time, were in a priority of 1 through 10, they were 19, I think. Everything on the road had priority over a troop train. because the war was over and they were trying to get things that needed to be done, get them done, and we were just added fodder. And we went to Namur, Belgium, to a replacement depot, stayed there for 4 or 5 days. Went down into Namur one time, that's all I had the money for. And then they shipped me to south of Munich, Germany, down in the mountains. Beautiful. I still love it. I'd love to go back one more time and just go back and see all of the old places. But I wasn't able to stay in the mountains too long, and they sent me to Nuremberg. And the entire battalion was in Nuremberg. When we were in the mountains, part of the battalion was in Bad Tolz and Bad Wiessee. Part of the battalion was in Munich. But when we come to Nuremberg, the entire battalion was in Nuremberg area. And A Company, I was in B Company. A Company was the guard battalion, or guard company, for the war crimes trials. And I pulled patrol in the streets of Nuremberg and the outlying areas in Firth. When the execution took place, I was in a M40 outside the Palace of Justice. M40 is a big armored car. And that was really our big thing there.
What execution are you talking about?
Of the war crimes.
It was more than one?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
There was, I don't remember how many there were, Goering and Hess and...
They were executed at, okay, all right, I'm trying to remember that. I knew that they were convicted there. I wasn't sure if they were executed.
They were executed by a Army Master Sergeant. He was the hangman. And one of them, I don't remember which one, was able to get cyanide into his cell block and committed suicide rather than...
I think that was Goering.
It could have been Goering. I don't remember.
I know what you mean. It was Goering, Herman Goering. You were there as a unit to what, to keep the peace in general, or were you prisoner guards and so on?
Well, I pulled road patrol, patrolled the towns. We were there. Our biggest job was to oversee the military and make sure that the military behaved themselves. The same as any police organization. And we patrolled all over the city and out into the country. In fact, I was selected in 1949 to, actually in December of 48, General Schwarzkopf, who's over here in Tampa, Florida right now, his father was in Germany. And he had been in the New Jersey State Police. And his father set up a rural military police force fashioned on the New Jersey State Police in Germany in 1948. And I met all the criteria at that time, young and handsome. And I was selected to be in the highway patrol. And we had one detachment in Wyden and one in Oberdockstetten. And we patrolled out of those. Shortly after I went in, I got the chance to take over as first sergeant of the highway patrol for Nuremberg. And they didn't give me the stripes and they didn't give me the money, but they let me call myself first sergeant. And It was good duty, and I stayed there until then when I come back to the States. In 1946, shortly after I got to Nuremberg, I met the woman that would be my wife. She was born in Czechoslovakia, slipped out of Czechoslovakia in the back of a U.S. Army mess truck. And I met her and married her. And by the grace of God, we were together for 53 years. We got married in 1949, and at that time they wanted everybody to come back to the States once they got married. And I would have stayed over there. And our oldest daughter was born there in Nuremberg. Our oldest son was born in California. Second oldest son was born in Fort Knox, Kentucky. The youngest daughter and the youngest son were both born in Germany. The girl in Heidelberg and the boy in Mannheim. His was the fastest. We couldn't make it to the hospital. We made it to the dispensary. And 3 weeks, exactly 3 weeks to the day after he was born, I wrecked my car coming home from work and ended up in the hospital in Heidelberg. From there to Frankfurt, back to Valley Forge General Hospital in Pennsylvania. They sent me back for the prime purpose of removing my left leg. I still got it. It's got a fake knee in it now, but I still got that leg.
Wow. That was in 1962.
1962.
Well,
yeah.
we're way ahead of ourselves here. We're back in Nuremberg. But I mean, keep talking. I'm glad you're giving me this. This is very.
Well, I had to get my wife in on this thing too, you know, because you know, for 53 years she was right there. And there will be other times when I'll probably mention her too, because there were times that she had to do things that I couldn't do.
Army wife.
When I get to that point, I'll be sure. And it actually after Germany, after the highway patrol and my marriage, we came back and I was stationed for just a short period of time in Tooele, Utah, outside of Salt Lake City. I didn't mark that down because I forgot about it. I was only there for, let's see, October of 49 until May or June of 50. Pulling MP duty in a munition depot, one of the Army's largest.
Still doing MP?
Yeah, wow. Pulled patrol on the base. And it's good duty. It was run primarily by the civilians because it was all civilian workers. I think there was only 30-some military personnel on the entire post. We didn't even have a nurse on the post. I had one medic who had been a corpsman in the Navy during World War II, and once a week, or if there was an emergency, a nurse would come over from Dugway Proving Ground and look us over. And if it was something that the nurse couldn't handle, then they'd have to call in a doctor from Salt Lake City or somewhere.
Well, they got you moving around, though. I mean, So you're still in Germany, then you're back in Utah, and then you went back to Germany?
Well, I went back to Germany years later.
Yeah, and years later, yeah.
Well, I wanted to, and but the tour duty there in Dugway or in Tooele, Utah was short and sweet. It didn't have really anything to do to mount anything. Right around at night in the closed area where they had all of the chemicals stored. And from there, a good friend got me a letter of acceptance at Fort MacArthur, California. And I went to Fort MacArthur, California, and was there until I went to Korea. Had a chance to meet a few movie stars. I met Bob Hope. In fact, I was in a movie with Bob Hope.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I was a drill sergeant. I believe the name of the movie was AWOL. Bob Hope was a military policeman, and they filmed a majority of the film right there on Fort MacArthur, California. And they had some places in there where they wanted troops marching and so forth, and I had a good job, so I got the job as drill sergeant and marched the troops. And we had a good company commander. He said, well, I'm not going to let you pay the men to work in the movie. I'm going to let you give the company a company party. And he did. That's exactly what he did. He got somebody else to replace us on duty for 24 hours. And the movie company, all the beer, drinks, barbecue, anything that we wanted, we got.
What year is this, roughly? This would be...
This would be sometime in probably 1951.
I'll look that up.
And
you've got your part in there. You're one of the you run marches. You're in
yeah.
the movie, huh? You can see yourself.
Oh yeah, I went to see the movie, and I can't remember the name of one that I was in with Glenn Ford, but I was only in it for about 30 seconds. I drove a Jeep down the road and made a left turn into Point Magoo, and
the Army movie? A war movie or just a...
No, it was a civilian movie, something about the Navy. But I was driving Glenn Ford in the back of my Jeep.
Oh, you were the driver?
Yeah.
You remember what year that was, roughly?
Well, that was 51 or 52. I think that was the early part of 52.
Any other movies you were in?
No, that's all. That's all.
You must have looked like, I mean, an Army guy, or they'd have got an actor, but you must have looked just like what Central Casting would put out. You kind of...
Well, most of the shots that we were in were no close up, but they showed us in the drill. In the Bob Hope movie, they showed us quite extensively there for a period of 10 minutes or so during the movie. Oh, it was, and while I was there, I pulled patrol, rode motorcycle. We went on the company went on a month's training cycle up in Camp Mason, which is across the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco. And we had 3 motorcycles in the company. and 3 motorcycles escorted a convoy of almost 50 vehicles from Fort MacArthur, California to Fort Mason. And when we got to San Francisco, they were supposed to have police there to escort us to San Francisco. But we got there a day early. Getting there a day early, we didn't have the police to escort us. But as luck would have it, the sergeant that was in charge of that escort detail was meeting us when we come into the edge of town. And he whirled around and asked if we were who we were, and we said yes. And he said, well, you're supposed to be here tomorrow. We don't have an escort set up for you. But he said, you got 3 bikes. I'll take you through town and across the bridge. And your 3 bikes will just have to block traffic. Well, 3 bikes trying to block traffic for 50 vehicles going through the city of San Francisco. And I don't think that he got under 40 miles an hour at any time. And we never stopped for anything. But in the convoy, all of the larger vehicles were in front. And being a military police outfit, most of the Jeeps had sirens on them. So the bikes would block the intersections for the big trucks, and the Jeeps would be bringing up the rear, and they had their own sirens. So if the light turned red, they could kick their sirens, and the convoy never slowed down. And we made it through. The bikes got to work out, though. I clue you, those little Harleys got to work out. And that was just some of the highlights there. And then I went to Korea.
This would be, we're talking about in November of '52, the first time you're in Korea?
Right.
Okay.
And we were on the ship from Japan to Korea. We stopped in Japan and got new clothes and weapons and all. And we were on the ship from Japan to Korea on Thanksgiving Day of 1952. And the turkeys that we got fed had kind of spoiled just a little bit. So every railing on that ship was a GI hanging over the side, getting rid of that poison turkey.
The war was underway at that time, too.
Just a little bit, yes.
Yeah.
And when I got to Korea, they assigned me to the 45th Military Police Company in the 45th Infantry Division, which had a stockade and a POW interrogation section. And since I had worked in the stockade a little bit in California, I got the job working in the stockade there. When I reported in, I saw the sign, commanding officer, should I use his name? Frederick W. Young, or no. Yeah. And he had been my company commander in Germany in 1947, 48, 49.
Oh, wow.
As a captain.
Wow.
And this was 52, and he was still a captain. Rumor has it that he pulled a couple of shady operations, but was not caught. But he transferred back to the stockade in Japan, the biggest stockade, and he wanted me to transfer back with him when I had my points in. Because I wanted to get my family back to Japan, over to Japan, give them a chance to see part of the world. And I decided I didn't want to work for him, but I got a good assignment when I transferred back to Japan. It was uneventful in Korea. I stayed there in the stockade area, and one time I had to go up to the front lines. Prisoners in the stockade cut firewood for the MPs. We had one stretch of road on the going up to the front lines that was one way. They had to have an MP checkpoint on each end, and they had to have fire for their stoves, because it got a little bit chilly in Korea. And I got the opportunity to drive a truckload of firewood up to the place one time. And you drove them right in the ravine, and the tracers, you could see the tracers going back and forth over your head at night, driving blackout up a road. I wanted to do it one time just for the hell of it, and I did it. And I didn't ask for seconds on that, clearly. But then I went back to Japan.
Camp Kobe?
To Camp Kobe. I don't think I'll ever forget that tour either. I was in charge of over 1,300 Japanese security guards. I was the honcho. And we had a detachment down at Mineshima Quartermaster Depot that I was responsible for. We had a K9 outfit that used the guard dogs around the bases, storage areas and so forth. And our guards pulled details on military ships being unloaded and loaded there at Kobe Port, and pulled a guard duty around practically all of the installations in the Kobe area, motor pool and various buildings and so forth. And while I was there, I dropped that force from over 1,300 to just under 1,200, and didn't lose a post. But I got rid of dead wood. And if I'd have been a civilian at the time, I would have made $1 million off of that, because I saved the government better than $10 million on that particular thing.
They weren't doing a job?
They were doing a job that they were given to do. The only thing was that somewhere along the line, it was never set up properly. And I'm a damned organizer. You can ask them right here. I organize right here. Even though I'm they call us residents, I call us inmates. Well, we had an outpost there in Kobe, up on the mountain, a radio relay station that we had to keep guards on. And they got paid extra when they were off away from home for quarters and subsistence and being away from home. And I wanted to see this Kobe outpost relay station, so I drove up there. And I get up there and I said, where they stay? Right there. The Emperor's summer palace they were living in when they were up there. And they were drawing money for it. Hardship. Hardship. Guys each had their own room. And so the next time the payroll come in, I refused to sign it. I said, hey, these guys are living in luxury. Well, yeah, but they're away from their family. I said, okay, they're getting a separation allowance, but they're getting a housing allowance too. And we're furnishing the house. They don't get the housing allowance anymore. Well, the payroll clerk told me I couldn't do it. That's something that's hard to tell me. I called the chief in and I said, Chief, I said, you draw an allowance for being able to speak English, right? He said, yes. I said, Mr. Hiroshima draws an allowance for being able to speak English, doesn't he? Yes. I said, well, he didn't understand me. I said that they're not going to draw a housing allowance on Kobe Mountain. And he doesn't understand me. So you explain it to him that if I don't get those vouchers changed, he ain't gonna draw that allowance. In fact, he ain't gonna draw nothing because he ain't gonna be employed here.
Did he see it your way?
Oh yeah, he saw it my way.
Time out, I got to change tape. Okay.
Okay. Well, we'll pick up where we left
Hold on, I
off.
got to reslate. Okay, this is continuation of our interview with Dal Albert Ballenger, B-A-L-L-E-N-G-E-R. We are at the Baldomero Lopez State Veterans Nursing Home, Land O'Lakes, Florida. Today is November 3rd, 2004. All right. Mr. Ballenger, we were at the Emperor's Palace.
Yeah.
On the top of the mountain in Kobe, Japan.
All right.
You were persuading in your gentle way that he ought to change the vouchers. And
Well,
turned out it worked out okay for you.
worked out very well for me and for him. He kept his job. As I mentioned before, I wanted my family over there. So, of course, as soon as I got to Japan, I put in for my family to come over. And I waited and waited. I had to pull a year there if my family didn't come. If my family came, I had to pull 3 years after they got there. So, after about 7 months, my wife said that she got a port call. She wrote me and said she got a port call to go to California to come to Japan the following month. But that she would be living in a town, I can't remember the name of it offhand, but I would only be able to be with family on weekends. That's how far away the town was where I'd get quarters. So I couldn't see that for 3 years. So I told her to turn the port call down. And so she turned the port call down. And I got called into the colonel's office. And Colonel said, Ballenger, why'd your wife turn down the port call? I said, Colonel, she's a few thousand miles away, but I'll tell you what, you get me over there and I'll ask her. Get the hell out of my office. I left his office. And my wife didn't come over there. I come home on time. In fact, I come home a little bit early. I got a chance to get on as prison guards on a small ship coming back to the States carrying prisoners from the stockade back to the States. So I come back the hard way. Then I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky. My second son was born. Relatively minor military police duty for the major portion of the time that I was there. But while I was there, we had one little incident where I had to furnish guards. I was the operations sergeant. And we had to furnish guards for top secret conferences. And I got a call one day that, where's the guards for the conference? I said, I didn't get an order for one. Yes, you did. Well, let me check. I checked, and sure enough, I had an order for one. I said, all right. I goofed. And I'll get them over there. I got the guards over there. Went in and told the company commander. He said, well, consider your butt chewed and go back out there and get your job done. So I did. And a few days later he told me, he said, I gotta go see the colonel today. He got a letter down on you. And he come back laughing. I said, what happened? He said, well, when I got there, the colonel said, I want the ass of the man responsible. So he said, I turned around and bent over. And he said, the colonel got a little unhappy about that and said, that's not what I meant. You're an operations sergeant. He said, yep. He's an E5, and he's got 11 master sergeants working for him. And if you think that I'm going to say anything to him about missing that conference, you're wrong. You got the ass. I'm responsible. Well, why ain't one of the master sergeants in charge of that operations? He ain't got sense enough. He said, it's simple. So, I mean, these are all officers that were in the Army during World War II, and at the end of World War II, they couldn't have an army of all officers, so they riffed them back to enlisted status, and they all were given master sergeant's rank. Oh. And so, anyway, I got through that one okay, and the supply sergeant left, the company supply sergeant. And I told the company commander, I said, I'd like to get the job as supply sergeant. And he said, you ever been a supply sergeant? I said, no. But I can learn. He said, okay. So he put me in the supply room. I had 2 weeks to learn how to be a supply sergeant. And I picked it up.
Let me ask you something. When you're transporting these prisoners, like you mentioned on the stockade ship, bringing them back in,
yeah.
I get the impression these are hardcore prisoners. These aren't just guys that got in fights or did some minor discipline stuff. These are hardcore military prisoners and what, prisoners of war? Or
no, American prisoners that were sentenced to anywhere from 5 years to life.
What would they have to do to get some life? I imagine they killed somebody, huh?
Well, some of it was cowardice before the enemy. And there was assault on officers, and it could be anything.
But you're talking about a serious. This isn't just somebody that got in a bar fight.
No, there wasn't somebody that was just playing patty cake and slipped and hit the guy in the nose. It was guys that were in for a hard time.
Somebody told me that during war, if a soldier were found convicted of rape. This came from World War II, that there was a problem with that, and that, as I say, execution was the either the penalty or the actual sentence that was meted out, and that put an end to that. Was that the case? If there were there capital crimes that you could execute a soldier for under?
I don't think that there may have been.
Okay.
I was not even told what they were in for. I didn't know that the least sentence that there was 5 years.
Okay, so these are all serious guys.
But they were all serious guys. I think we had something like 22 of them on the brig.
These were high security people. I mean, there wasn't a chance they were going to escape, but you still were responsible.
Right.
Okay.
And one of them got appendicitis while we were out. And the closest ship with a doctor on it was 3 days away. And all we had on the ship was a corpsman. And they got radio teletype from this doctor on another ship, and he explained to the corpsman what he had to do, and the corpsman performed an appendectomy on this prisoner on this little ship right out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean coming back.
You've been doing all police work from the time you came in until the time you got into the supply sergeant.
Right.
Why would you want to change from, was that just a duty station issue, or did you want to do other work?
Well, there were so many master sergeants and E6s in the military police that I could never hope to get promoted.
What was the highest rank you attained during your career?
Sergeant First Class E7. And the supply field was open for promotion.
Gotcha.
In fact, I got promoted after I left Fort Knox and went to D.C. and then over to Arlington, Virginia. Well, while I was in D.C., I got promoted to E6. I was levied from Fort Knox because I met the criteria for the old guard, which those are the ones that march for the president and pull guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and so forth. And when I got there, I was made assistant supply sergeant in a headquarters company that only had 10 people in it. Really hard duty. And the company commander of E Company had an infantryman in his supply room, his supply sergeant. And he asked me if I'd like to come to work for him. And I asked him straight out. He was a Congressional Medal of Honor winner from Korea.
Remember his name?
Stanley T. Adams. Yeah, I'll never forget him. I asked him, I said, do you want a supply sergeant or do you want a dog robber? He said, what do you mean? I said, just what I said. I said, if you want a supply sergeant, I'd like the job. If you want somebody to run errands for you, that's not a supply sergeant. He said, you just got a job. You report to me tomorrow morning. So I went to work for him. A few weeks later, one of the men in the company got reduced in rank, and they could promote then a replacement. And so Captain Adams asked the president of the promotion board, he said, do I have to go in front of the promotion board as a witness? And he said, well, I tell you, Captain, we got one opening and we got one man coming in front of the board, so you can figure it out for yourself. So I made it, and then the outfit broke down and reorganized under a new system in the service, and I went over to the Honor Guard Company as supply sergeant over there.
This still in Arlington?
Yeah, in Arlington. And then from there, I re-enlisted in November of '57 and went to town and bought what I'd always wanted, a new car. Took that re-enlistment bonus, bought me a brand new 1957 Chevy. The fastest thing on the road.
Oh, those were sweet.
And would pass everything on the road but a gas station. They would not pass the gas station. I took that to Germany with me.
This is at Sandhofen, January '58 when you went over there?
Yeah.
You were there for 4 years.
Yeah. Well, I liked it over there, and a lot of my wife's relatives were over there.
Oh, of course.
And we could go from Mannheim down to where her relatives lives down in the mountains, and
driving a 57 Chevy.
Driving a 57 Chevy.
Sweet.
And go down for a weekend. Actually, go down that far for a weekend and stay with her aunt and go up to the guest house and watch the Plattenspielers, the men with the leather pants and boots and dancing and putting on their show and drinking my beer, which I enjoy. And the youngest son that was born in Fort Knox was just talking, and they liked him. My wife's aunt loved him. The whole family did. So they wanted him to stay there. I said, well, we don't have any clothes or anything, so next time we come down, we'll let him stay. Okay. Well, he couldn't speak German and they couldn't speak English. But they kept him for 3 weeks and had a ball with him. And
when did you get in the wreck? That was in April of '62.
Right.
That wasn't the Chevy, tell me.
Yeah, that was that 57 Chevy. I had just had the engine rebuilt. I had the rear main went out on it, and I had the engine rebuilt, and I was going home from work, and I don't know what happened. There was a guy that was working with me in the supply room that had a 57 Ford station wagon, and he always talked about how fast it would run. Well, there was a stretch of road that was just a mile long. We come out from under an underpass, and he told me about it later, that I passed him, he was doing 80 miles an hour, and I passed him, and he said, I started to get out and see what was wrong with my car. And he said, I never slacked on, and I got to the end of that mile, and the road made an S-turn, and the road turned, and I didn't. I went straight into a railroad yard. In the left front corner of the car hit a reinforced concrete post. And the car went supposedly about 15 feet in the air, come back down and landed on its top. And somewhere in my treasures, I have pictures of it.
You were about, what, 35 years old about that time?
Yeah. And so
wow.
They weren't sure I was going to make it. I got my wife to the hospital in Heidelberg, and she said she got scared because a priest came in, and she was raised a Catholic, and she said she just knew that they'd called a priest in to give me last rites. And she said the place was in a tizzy until the head nurse came in, Captain Liberty. They called it Liberty Hall. She said when that nurse come in, everybody in there, including the doctor, snapped shit. I mean, she told them, you do this, you do that, do that. She said, don't you see that man's injured? She said in 5 minutes she had that place running like an oiled wheel. And just after I wrecked the car was Easter. They had me in they put me in a body cast from my chin to the bottom of both feet.
Jeez.
And I told the corpsman on the ward, I said, I want my family here for Easter. And he said, you can't have kids on the ward. I said, that's the rule, I know. But rules are made to be broken. He said, well, you have to talk to Captain Liberty. So she come in, what the hell do you want? I said, I want to see my kids. She said, you know they can't come on the damn ward? Yep, I know they can't come on the damn ward. That's the rules. Break them. She said, Well, I didn't get any rule that said that you couldn't leave the ward. So my family came down, they put me on a gurney and locked the elevators. And my family and I spent a couple hours at the elevator landing.
You were in the hospital a long time.
Oh, yeah.
About 8 months?
Yeah. I was so tired of laying there in that cast. And I think it was August. They cut the cast off of me and put me in traction. And then in September, they let me get in a wheelchair. And I went to the head nurse and I said, "You got something I can do?" She said, "Are you good with paperwork?" I said, "Yeah." She said, I got just a job for you." Walked in and she walked in the ward clerk's office. She said, "You want to be a ward clerk, wardman, don't you?" He said, "Yeah, that's my MOS." She said, "Okay, teach Ballenger what you know about this job." He said, "I can do that in 5 minutes." I took the job, and I ran the paperwork. Never having done it before, but I ran the paperwork until I got out of there. And
then you went to, now you were doing your convalescence in Pennsylvania. They shipped you back stateside?
yeah,
And then after you got out of there, you went to Fort Gordon in Georgia.
right.
Training, what were you training?
Well, training recruits, but at that time I was a supply sergeant.
Okay.
I was still a supply sergeant.
Okay.
But supply sergeants' fields had rank had frozen. So I got over to be the field first sergeant to take the troops out. Marching with a cane. But I wasn't in the supply room and I could have a shot at a promotion. And I went in front of the promotion board. I made my E7 there. I figured while I was there, I got my license to sell securities, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Took the test, got my license, and I was going to retire there and set up there. But Uncle had some different ideas.
Oh, that's right. You went back over.
Eight months before I could put in my retirement papers, I got orders to go to Korea. If I'd have waited 2 more months, I could have put my retirement papers in. But I couldn't put my retirement papers in until 6 months. So I went back to Korea, went into a job I knew nothing about, taking care of long-term storage, engines, vehicles, tanks, everything. And I was in charge of the shop that did all that. They had Korean laborers. I did quite a bit of reading, studying. They had 2 American civilians that was in that type work that worked for me. And so I worked in the shop there until the guy that run the enlisted men's club was coming back to the States. And I put in for it. Got the job to run the club. And I made some friends while I running the club.
I'll bet you did.
The post executive officer was a politician, and he liked to really be in with the local politicians. So I was on a job, and his driver came up to the club, and the NCO club, the club, ran the whiskey outlet. And he come up, the driver came up with a list, 6 or 8 bottles of whiskey that this colonel wanted. And I said, okay, I got the stamps, give me the money. He said, oh, the club furnishes that. I said, like hell it does. And he said, well, you'll have to talk to the colonel. I said, I don't have to talk to the colonel. The only way he gets whiskey from here is he pays for it. Well, I made a friend there. Definitely. And he paid for the whiskey, what he got. He didn't get what he wanted, but he paid for what he got. And I said, well, my tenure as club operator is going to be short. But I made the best of it. And it was time for me to come home. And I got no orders to come home. And I asked about it, nobody knew nothing. The orders haven't come down. So I wrote to my wife, or I taped my wife. We'd bought tape recorders before we went over there, and instead of writing, we just talked to each other.
Sure.
And I told her, I said, you call Washington, D.C., the office of Senator John Sherman Cooper, and tell him that I'm overdue to come home and that I can't get any answers. And I said, don't talk to no peons. You tell him you want to talk to Senator Cooper. He was senior senator from Kentucky at that time, and also chairman of the Armed Services Committee.
Ooh.
So she called him and talked to his aide or whatever, and she told him just what I told her to tell him. He said, just tell me slightly what you need to talk to him about, and he will call you back, I guarantee you. So she told him. She said in about a half hour she got a call. It's Senator Cooper. She told him what the story was. He said, I'll call you back within 48 hours. And he called her back within 6 hours. Told her I'd be going to Fort Benning, Georgia, when I would be coming. And where I would be stationed when I got to Fort Benning. And she taped me, and it got over there before they got the orders. And they got the orders. And they had found a way to get me out of the club. And they wanted so bad to peel them stripes off my arm. I went to the company commander and I said, hey, leaving the club, they want to transfer me to another company. He said, I got to have first sergeant. He's my first sergeant on orders to go home. And okay. I took over as first sergeant for the next 3 or 4 weeks until my orders came through. And my orders came through just like Cooper said. And 3 days, I understand 3 days after I left, I had an IG inspection. And the NCO club was taken over and the officers club was taken over, handed to someone else. Post commander was relieved. They found that someone had signed Dal Ballenger on an extended tour, that I had volunteered to extend my tour in Korea. And I hadn't done it. And that's what I mentioned there, that my wife was able to do things that I couldn't do.
Boy, that was dumb of him to do that.
And, well, it was dumb, but, you know, when somebody gets their pride hurt by a poor little old sergeant too, you know. But I come back and of course, I put in my retirement papers right away, and they pushed them through because I come into an outfit that had just come back from Dominican Republic.
Oh, that's right.
And was going to Vietnam as a unit. And the first sergeant that they had was a panty waist. And I was sitting in the operations office one day. Colonel came in, and he said, "Hey, Top, let's go take a walk through the barracks." Well, I wasn't the first sergeant, but he said, we got up in the barracks, and he said, "Hey," he said, "how'd you like to be first sergeant in this company?" I said, "We got a first sergeant." He said, "No, you don't." He said, "You got a man with 6 stripes. You don't have a first sergeant." He said, "You want to be first sergeant in the company?" I said, "I'll take it." But I said, "It's got to run my way." He said, "That's the reason I want you in there." Okay. So all the old guys that had been in Dominican Republic could not go to Vietnam. So they had to get replacements in, ship out the old guys and get in new ones. And I made friends there right away. And I told the colonel, I said, "Now, I got certain outfits that I want some of these people to go to." And he said, "I don't need a reason. You tell me where you want them to go, and they go there." So I gave them the list, and the orders were cut, and they were shipped to where I sent them to. There was a couple of first sergeants that I had met that were pretty straight, and these were a few goof-offs. And one of the first things I did as first sergeant is start holding reveille. And first day I was there for reveille, I didn't have a sergeant out there. I was out there. I had an NCO meeting. And I looked around and I said that we would stand reveille this morning. We live off post. I said, "So do I." I said, "Tomorrow morning, I'm going to be here for reveille. And every man in this company that's got stripes is going to be here for reveille too. And any stripe wearer that is not here for reveille will not be a stripe wearer at noon." I said, "I'll bust every damn one of you." Next morning, they was all there.
Boy, you must have been quite a handful for some of these guys, and I'll bet a lot of them remember you real well.
Oh, yeah. I'm remembered. But I'm remembered by the good things that I did just as damn well as anything else. And you can go right here, and you can ask right here. I can get more done in this place right here than most of the workers here can get done.
Tell me about the Army that you've known for 20 years, from the time you went in to the time you came out. How did it change?
It's black and white. I got a son-in-law that's retired now, 20-some years, retired as a sergeant major. Come crying to me, "These officers won't let us do anything." I said, "Don't cry to me. It's your own damn fault. The sergeants run the Army. It did when I was in there. When I was in Fort Gordon, General Select called all the lieutenants in that worked on the ranges. He said, "You'll be out there. But them sergeants run it." He said, "To turn you loose out there is the blind leading the blind, destination unknown." And the Army ran on sergeants. And we had damn good company commanders. I had good company commanders, and I had piss poor ones. And Captain Adams there in McNair, D.C. was one of the best. Captain Lord in Fort Knox, Kentucky. I had good ones. After I took over as first sergeant and before I retired, We had a young first lieutenant that was going for a regular Army commission. Come in there and he was gung-ho. He was going to run things his way. The day he reported in, I walked over there with the duty roster and the morning report, and I said, "You're there." And he said, "What's this?" I said, "That's the morning report and that's the duty roster." He said, "Well, I can see that, but what are they doing on my desk?" I said, "The man that runs them two pieces of paper there runs this company. Now they're running this office or they're running mine across the hall. Take them and get out of my office."
What'd you do after you retired?
Believe it or not, in 1971, I was asked to move to Florida. I had found what my wife had been looking for, the New Apostolic Church. And we became members, and I was asked to move to Florida to take over as director of a congregation in Newport Richey. I was ordained minister, and for 22 years I served the congregation in Newport Richey, Florida.
Wow.
I went to school for 4 years under the GI Bill for inability to do things that I had done before. So I put in, I love math. And I put in, I went to school for 4 years in accounting. Let Uncle Sam pay me to go to school for 4 years.
This is 67 to 71 in there?
No, after 71, after I came to Florida.
Oh, after. What'd you do in that 4 years prior to coming to Florida?
I ran a lawn business. 235 project had just come out. The less money you had, the more people you owed, the better house you could buy. And my rector in the church in Columbus, Georgia, was a real estate agent. He was also a retired GI. And he said, "Dal," he said, "you got them boys growing up." He said, "You're working in the post office. Why don't you take over these repossessed homes and take care of the lawns?" I said, "Well, I hadn't thought nothing about it." He said, "Well," he said, "all you need is a used pickup truck and a couple of good lawnmowers." And he said, "I can pull the strings to get you these places." So we had 21 places.
Lawn business, wow.
That we went and kept the lawns mowed on these repossessed homes that the government had repossessed.
Well, now, how did you get, were you a religious or spiritual man in your younger years?
No, not particularly. In fact, I was raised a Baptist, and I went to church as a Baptist. But I got completely turned off with religion, and I still am, as far as religion is concerned, in that respect, because it seemed like the only thing that I could hear, and I went to the Catholic Church with my wife a couple of times, and the only thing I could hear in the Catholic Church, the Baptist Church, and others, was if you don't belong to this church, you're going to hell, and if you don't pay the preacher, you're going to hell. And I went to church in Columbus, Georgia the first time to appease my wife. It's just that simple. And service was being held in an old Oddfellows Hall. Hot in the summertime, cold in the wintertime. And One of the ministers was an old country boy from Georgia. And he served, and he said, "In my father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you." He said, "In the Father's house there's a mansion for the good Catholics, a good Baptists, a good everything." And he said, Christ said to his disciples, "I go to prepare a place for you." He said, "Now, if there's mansions already established, can you imagine what this other place is going to be like?" He said, "I think I'd like to try that." And I waited for the end of the service when they passed the plate. They didn't pass one. And I punched my wife and I said, "They passed the plate?" She said, "No, there's a box when you come in. If you want to put something in it, you put it in there." Well, that's different. So I started going, and they felt that I was good enough to be a minister, and they ordained me a minister. Incidentally, the ministers in that church do not get paid. We work for a living. None of the ministers get paid. And my supplement when I first came down here, shortly after I came down here, was going to college for 4 years. And then I went to work in the district office in St. Petersburg. I would drive from my home in Holiday to St. Petersburg 6 days a week to do the paperwork. It started out, could I help him out a couple of days a month? And then it was, well, come in once a week. And it ended up that I was there up to 7 days a week. And I served in congregations in Jacksonville, Brooksville, Ocala. I helped start the Ocala congregation and the Gainesville congregation. Fort Myers, Miami, Boca Raton, West Palm Beach. And I was retired 11 years ago from that. And since I've been here, and in fact lately I've been thinking of talking to the apostle and see if he wants to take me out of retirement and let me be back in my office right here. They don't have a chaplain here. I spend my time here. I don't know if I'm supposed to tell this or not, and I don't give a damn. I work right over here in the dining room.
Oh, I saw you in there. Yeah, that's right. I saw that. 'Cause I've never seen that before.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'm doing something constructive. I'm not doing it to particularly to help out this nursing home. But there's over 100 men in here that's in worse shape than I'm in. I'm the healthiest bastard in here. There's absolutely no reason for me to be in here except I fell a few times. And I'm thinking about getting out of here and going to a living facility, which would be considerably cheaper than what this is.
Oh, that's right.
But I like it here. And the people like me here. I've done things in that dining room that couldn't be done. And if it sounds like I'm bragging, by God I am. I'm proud of it.
Well, I want to thank you so much for talking about your experiences. You've had a rich life. You have a rich life. It's an honor to talk with you.
Well, it's a privilege to have this. When Susan came to me, I get choice jobs around here.
I wish we had started with you first. I probably wouldn't have any time for these other folks. And I mean, they're great stories too.